Hello Year 11 and welcome to your last English revision session before your last English exam. On Thursday the 6th of June you will be sitting English Language Paper 2. English Language Paper 2 looks at writers' viewpoint and perspectives. You will have section A, which will be worth 40 marks, and section B, which is also worth 40 marks. Included in the paper are two non-fiction extracts. You will have 1 hour 45 minutes to complete the exam. In section A there'll be 4 reading questions, and in section B there'll be 1 writing question. The front of the paper will look like this. Remember to read the instructions and the information and advice carefully. You are advised to spend about 15 minutes reading through the sources and all the questions that you have to answer. We'd suggest reading the questions before you read the extracts to give you a sense of what the extracts will be about. On the front of the insert, you will also get some extra information about the extracts. It will tell you which century the text is from, the title of the text, the form that the text has been written in, who by, and again, more specifically when. Here is an example of extracts that may have been seen in other exams before for Language Paper 2. And you'll see at the top of both extracts there is a box of extra information, and we advise you to read that and highlight any pertinent information that might be useful when you're understanding the extracts. So after you've spent 15 minutes reading the sources, maybe making some notes on the perspectives and any changes of perspectives on either source, you move to question 1. On question 1, you will be required to find four statements that are true. You need to shade the circles in of the boxes of the ones that you think are true. You have a total of 4 marks here that are available, so make sure that you do give it a go, and I would take approximately 4 minutes to complete this. It does advise you how to answer the question if you do make an error, so do use the bullet points at the top to help you with that. So moving on to question 2. Question 2 looks like this. You will have 8 marks available to you, so take approximately 8 minutes to answer this. You need to refer to source A and source B for this question, and you will need to use details from both sources to write a summary of what you understand about the similarities or differences between the focus of the question. Make sure that you focus on the question. So I am being quite repetitive when I'm going to tell you, you need to answer the question. Do not, in this question, focus on the writer's thoughts and feelings. Focus on the specific focus of the question. You do not need to analyse methods, so words, phrases, linguistic devices or structure, but what you do need to do is infer meaning. So this gives the impression, perhaps this could suggest, it is as if, it is likely that. Here are the suggested sentence starters for Language Paper 2, question 2. You can see here the 4 to 6 sentence starters with the perhaps, so as to and potentially because being the gateway to possibly achieving a higher grade, depending on what you write next. Language Paper 2 question 3 is a question you have seen before. It's a similar question that you saw on Language Paper 1 question 2, which is worth 8 marks, but this time it's worth 12 marks. You will need to refer to a certain part of the source, and in this instance it's source A from lines 26 to 35, and it's how does the writer use language to describe the crowd of people. And here you can see how we've highlighted key bits of information that we would keep in mind when answering this question. As question 3 is 12 marks, you'd spend approximately 12 minutes on this. You'd aim for around 2 to 3 detailed paragraphs, and each paragraph should include a big idea and 2 to 3 pieces of embedded evidence to support this idea. When analysing, consider your interpretation within the context of the extract and ensure that you analyse the methods used. So you're not just saying that the writer uses a certain method, you're explaining why that method has been used and what impact that has. Here are some of the suggested sentence starters that you have used in lessons. Please make sure that you know these for the exam. I'm sure this is what you've been revising at home. So now we're on the last question of the reading section, and this is question 4. For this question, again, like question 2, you need to refer to the whole of source A together with the whole of source B. And the question will, or the statement will say something like, compare how the writers convey their different attitudes, viewpoints, perspectives, ideas, feelings, thoughts about something. In your answer, you could compare their different attitudes, viewpoints, feelings, thoughts, ideas, opinions about the focus, compare the methods that the writers use to convey their attitudes, and you support your response with references to both texts, which could include quotes or more general references. As it's 16 marks, you take approximately 16 minutes on this question. If the question asks you to compare the different attitudes, opinions, perspectives or viewpoints, ultimately you can discuss their feelings. Don't be put off by a different word put into that spot. Really, we're considering the writer's feelings about the thing that they have written about. It's really important as well that you track any change of feeling in source A and then any change of feeling in source B, and this can be subtle. Points to consider when answering question 4. Your points of comparison can be like for level 3 and 4, as well as differing perspectives and feelings. Don't expect though that you'll be able to find like for every single idea. It is important that you analyse methods, and that can be language or structure, and focus on different interpretations and imagery created rather than relying on a list of synonyms. Provide as much detail as possible because this can get you into level 4. You don't have to rely on just being perceptive. Avoid positive or negative when exploring thoughts and feelings, as this limits your analysis and vocabulary, and consider the purpose and audience of each text and how this could link to perspective. Now, one way to upgrade your question 4 response would be to make sure that you're not just relying on positive and negative as a means of comparing their feelings. Look at some of the vocabulary here. Some of this vocabulary could elevate you from considering just positive, negative feelings to a more nuanced, detailed understanding of how the writer may be feeling about the subject they are writing about. I would suggest you look over some of this key vocab in preparation for the exam. When writing your question 4 response, you have been advised to write in the overall structure. So for grades 4 to 5, you may write a whole paragraph on source A and then a whole paragraph on source B. In grade 6, you really want to focus on making sure that you've got a like-for-like comparison whilst focusing on source A's writer's attitudes, feelings and analysis, and then how those change, and then the same in source B with that like-for-like comparison in between there. In grade 7, you can see how it moves between source A, source B, source A, source B, talking about writer's attitudes, feelings and analysis, then the like-for-like in source B, then a change in the writer's attitudes or feelings and analysis, and then the source B like-for-like comparison. We have discussed this in lesson, so this will be familiar to you. Here is an example of the sentence starters that we've suggested you use for question 4, including some of the comparative conjunctions. If you have been more used to the layering grid, here is the layering grid you have also maybe seen in lessons. So to the final part of this exam, we're now moving on to question 5, section B, the writing question, where you will have the opportunity to gain up to 40 marks for writing your own viewpoint piece of writing. You will read a statement given to you by the examiner, and you'll be asked to write an article, a letter or a speech about your viewpoint based on the statement that you are given. For question 5, it is imperative that your argument is clear in your persuasive piece of writing. You need to pick one side of the argument and stick to it throughout. It is really important that the examiner can read your argument in your speech, letter or article and be able to summarise what you have just said and really know which side of the argument you stand for. You can make that clear through your persuasive language choices, through an anecdote that you might use to support your ideas. If you do want to include a counter-argument, you need to keep it brief. I would suggest only to one sentence, in my opinion, and you explain why you disagree with that idea. Well, some may think this. I believe this is completely unacceptable. And by providing the counter-argument in that way, you are clarifying your argument. It is really important that you plan your response for question 5. To be able to create a clear argument before you start writing, you need to know where you are going with your writing. If you just write straight away, there is a chance that your argument will become weaker as you write. So do plan ahead and take 5 minutes to do that. We suggest that you include some of these ideas in your planning. You do not need to include them all, but we suggest including around 3 of these. That might be thinking about the issues of economics or money related to the statement, how this might impact gender, class, people's beliefs, mental health and well-being or psychology, morality, aesthetics or the environment, and politics. Again, you do not need to include all of these, but we'd suggest considering 3. Over the next couple of slides are suggested slow writing checklists that will help you be able to use a range of sentence structures which will provide you with marks, as well as structuring your response to your statement. You can see here that we have suggested that you start with an anecdote beginning with a subordinate clause when, followed by a compound sentence. Then you begin a sentence with a fronted adverbial, then a sentence with a semicolon, and then a rhetorical question. So alongside the range of sentence structures, you do need to ensure that you're using a range of punctuation too. Here is the grade 7 slow writing checklist. In here you can see an addition of include sarcasm or exaggeration, hyperbole, for humour. You can see they're using hyphens to replace commas around an embedded clause. And you can see there begin the sentence with a subordinate clause and include an embedded clause in the main clause. So the idea of creating a multi-clause sentence and then including a colon as well as the other things that have been included on the other checklist too. It is important that you include a range of sentence structures and punctuation to achieve higher grades. You may have also seen this grid, which we suggest would support those aiming for the grade 8 to 9. The addition here is the idea that you might include semantic fields, you might include symbolism, extended metaphor to demonstrate and create imagery related to your idea. And it is really important, that last point there, the cohesion, that your response is planned well and that your planned response then creates a structured response. And your ideas are thoroughly developed, not just one sentence on each or not just superficial. And you can see there the range of punctuation, the different sentence types. In addition to your sentence starters, you can see here suggestions for different subordinate clauses, fronted adverbials, prepositional phrases, embedded clauses, and compound sentences. Finally, Language Paper 2 focuses on perspectives and viewpoints, which ultimately means the writer's feelings. It's really important that you answer all questions. When you look at how many marks there are available, that equates to about the approximate time you should spend on that question. So 8 marks, 8 minutes, 4 marks, 4 minutes, 12 marks, 12 minutes, and so on. It is really important that when you get to question 5, you present a clear argument when communicating your own perspective on the statement that is given to you. It's really important that you use paragraphs to construct your idea, to clearly lay out your different ideas based on the statement. Please make sure you also check your response to ensure that you are accurate in what you have written, check for your punctuation accuracy, check for any spelling mistakes and any grammatical errors. We wish you the best of luck. Good luck, Year 11.